Hey everybody, Caleb's out. Why? And what happens now? I'm going to try and walk you through exactly why we got here because it's been one of the most insane weeks in this whole process. So, Caleb's new trial was scheduled for June 1st of this year. This past Tuesday on the 19th, we had a big motions hearing prior to the trial, okay? So, the state came in. They wanted a continuance, which means to move the trial date farther out than what it's currently set for, because new evidence has recently come in that highly favors Caleb. The prosecution realized they were looking at a very different trial here than what the first one was. They wanted to get this continuance so that they could hire their own expert in order to counter our expert. At this point, I think the state already kind of knew that they were backed into a corner. So the defense, Caleb's defense, obviously objected to this continuance. We argued for like over an hour, but the judge ends up granting the continuance anyways. The new trial date is now set to August the 18th. And at this point, the judge asks Caleb's lawyer, as well as the prosecutors, they ask Caleb's lawyer, can your witness be ready on August the 18th. Now, don't forget this, because we're going to circle back to it. So then, as the day moved on, we went through several more motions about what evidence would even be admissible in trial. It got very heated. There was a lot of emotion in the room. People were arguing over the Supreme Court rulings. One problem would get solved, and then two more would pop up. And once again, I think the state is realizing just how screwed they are here. This trial is starting to look more and more like an uphill battle for the side of the prosecution, and it ends up being total deadlock for an hour or more. When I say deadlock, I mean you just have to be there. I can't even describe it. I have watched these processes for years, and I have never seen something completely go sideways like this. Now, finally, after all of this back and forth, the judge rules on everything, and actually most of the decisions went in our favor. And so at this point, there's just one final motion left: Caleb's bond. Caleb's defense lawyer, Mr. De Hoyos, argues very simply, Judge, since the trial has been moved to August the 18th, this is going to violate my client's right to a speedy trial. We'd request that you let him out on bond. Now, if you don't know, those in custody have a right to a speedy trial. I can't remember off the top of my head if it's 130 days, but it's somewhere around there. If you're out on bond, then you have no right to a speedy trial because you're not in custody. And now at this point, the state is in shock because they realize what they've just done. They've not only created an appealable defense if Caleb lost the trial again, but when your speedy trial rights are violated, the case is often dismissed, and the court even recognizes this. So at this point, the state and the defense, when I say state, I mean the prosecutors, the ones charging Caleb, the state and Caleb's defense lawyer, they go outside of the courtroom for a long time. And you can, at one point, we literally heard them yelling at each other. The prosecutor comes back in, and the judge asks, what now? The state then withdraws their motion for a continuance. Judge, we're ready to go to trial on June 1st again. They would rather take their uphill battle against Caleb and Caleb's defense on June the 1st, rather than allow any bond for Caleb or allow any speedy trial issues for obvious reasons, right? If we violate speedy trial, the case just gets dismissed. Now, remember, earlier I said Caleb's defense was instructed by the court to make sure that their expert witness, the one with all of the evidence that, in my opinion, would likely return a not guilty verdict for Caleb, the court asked his defense to make sure that they were going to be available on the new trial date of August the 18th. And Caleb's lawyer did this. And now the state is asking for the original trial date again of June 1st. Caleb's lawyer says very simply, Judge, my expert witness is no longer available on June 1st. This witness, he's an expert, right? He gets subpoenaed in trials all over the country at all times. So after he was freed up by Kaleb's defense lawyer from the week of June 1st, that week was immediately filled for him in probably another jurisdiction, another trial probably. He's not available on the 1st of June. And the judge and the prosecution have essentially created this issue at this point. And everyone in that room, the prosecutors, the judge, the defense, they all realize the truth. Kaleb's either going to have an unfair trial, which is going to be appealable again if he loses in June, or there's going to be a case dismissal if the trial was scheduled for August. The state is now, at this point, they're nailed to the wall, and there's nothing they could do about it. At this point, it's genuine courtroom chaos. If you've ever seen those live streams online from Zoom Court, the ones that go viral, this would have been one of those. This would have been one of the most viral ones I've ever seen. People were freaking out. And that, at this point, that's when Kaleb and his lawyer made the decision. They offered to plea no contest to involuntary manslaughter in exchange for time served. And now everyone has what they want. The state gets their conviction, and Kaleb is a free man. We picked him up from jail that evening. And no, Kaleb did not plead guilty, as some articles suggest. It was no contest. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of questions, and I will do my best to answer a few. So at this point, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, right? Who's to blame for this? I'll answer that for you. Our government. You would think that after his trial was handled so horribly, that the highest court in Kansas reversed his conviction, that at this point, the prosecution would have done their homework if they really thought he was guilty. But make no mistake about this. They would not have entertained this plea deal of time served if Kaleb was guilty. They knew they were cooked the moment we walked into that courtroom. I don't know what else to say. Unless you're a rich person, you just, quite frankly, you don't walk away from something like this. So, do I wish this went to trial? There's a part of me that does, yes. I believe the evidence was on our side. A lot of new evidence has come out, and the truth would have come out fully. It would have been public record. But, I mean, yes, I also respect Kaleb's decision. He is the one who's been sitting in prison this entire time. He's the one who has to make that call. I can't say I'd have done any differently. I'd like to think so. I think we'd all like to think so. But I've never been to prison. Most of us have never been to prison, you know? And keep in mind, the prosecutors have already offered Kaleb a plea deal a few weeks ago. It would be the same plea, but he would have done an extra 3 years, I think, in prison. And he turned it down then, right? I mean, he was looking at 25 to life down to 6 years if he pled a few weeks ago. And he still didn't take that. Do I think Kaleb is any less innocent for making this plea deal? Absolutely not. Because I've seen the evidence, and too much of this, I'm sorry, quite frankly, points in the other direction. I'm not going to get into what that evidence is. And I'm not going to try and convince you if Kaleb made the right or wrong decision. At this point, you're going to come to that conclusion on your own. And I think most of y'all just read headlines anyways. You probably won't even watch this. If you think he's guilty, in your mind, he's guilty. And if you think he's innocent, you know, no one allows any gray area in this situation for some reason. I'm not going to talk about what that evidence is unless I get pushed. If I see any more doxing or addresses being shared online or death threats, make no mistake, I'll lay it out for the whole world to see. Don't test me on this. The other side of the aisle has not been there for this whole process since Kaleb's conviction was overturned. And to me, their absence speaks volumes. It's been nothing but empty chairs since August of last year. But today Kaleb's out. And to me, that's what matters the most right now. All I want at this point is for Kaleb and his family to be able to properly move on and grieve for the first time in 5 years. Kaleb's future has been in limbo since 2021. He's not been able to grieve the death of Malachi. Before we end this, I want to give a special thanks to a few people. Some of them might watch, some of them might not. The first one is Mr. Jorge De Hoyos. He's Kaleb's defense lawyer the second time around. Guys, I mean, when you think of public defenders, you think of someone who's sloppy, like a sleazy attorney that does backdoor deals with the state and they're kind of working for the judge and da-da-da. Man, this is not true for Mr. De Hoyos. He's always made logical, passionate legal arguments, not just for Kaleb, but I've watched him on Zoom court for the last year. He truly cares for all of his clients. And I've spoken with him personally on several occasions. He truly believes that Kaleb is innocent. So Mr. De Hoyos, thank you. Number two, I don't know if she'll ever see this, but Michelle Davis, that's Kaleb's appellant lawyer. The Kansas appellant office deals with hundreds of conviction appeals every year, probably. And we got to be honest here, guys. Most of these appeals, if you go watch them, they're all publicly available on YouTube. Most of these appeals are just people who are grasping at straws. They're obviously guilty most of the time. Michelle showed up to Kaleb's motion hearing this week, not as his lawyer. She wasn't working for him. She sat with us in the gallery to show her support for him. And if that doesn't show you Kaleb's innocence, I really don't know what does. And you should have seen the prosecutors' faces when they realized who she was. I mean, it was priceless. Now, I'm sure here's someone else who will probably never see this. Judge Ricky. This is the judge who has presided over both cases, the one in 2023 and the one this year. Whether, we've all agreed and disagreed with several of his rulings, but I really think that Judge Ricky did his absolute best to rule fairly in every decision. Again, I said this about Mr. De Hoyos, the same for Judge Ricky. I've watched him for the last 3 years on Zoom court. I truly believe he is a good judge. I truly believe he is doing the best with what he can, and I've never seen him rule in a manner that is unfair. And finally, to all our friends and family who supported us, some of you throughout the years, you've privately encouraged me to keep sharing Kaleb's story and spread awareness, even when it was tough. Some of you have publicly shared some of the work that I've done. People who used to think he was guilty but reached out to me to tell me that you changed your mind. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I mean, it's been a journey. And for now, all I want to do is watch Kaleb and his family heal. So if you've been riding with us through this or even criticizing us along the way, thank you. Love y'all. Till next time.